Please welcome Dame Jenny Abramsky.
I'm very short, so I've got a little thing to stand on, so I hope you can see me. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's really a great pleasure to welcome you to this Heritage Exchange event. I'm thrilled with the breadth and the depth of expertise assembled in this uplifting space, which I'm sure will help inspire our thoughts and ambitions over the next 2 days. This is a fitting venue, I think, for our discussions. A Hawksmoor church on the fringes of the City of London, which unbelievably lay abandoned and derelict for over 40 years, but which has now been transformed into an inspiring new use as the London Symphony Orchestra's music education space. And I have to confess that the last time I was in this church was to hear Bruce Springsteen pay tribute to the great Pete Seeger with his Seeger sessions performed to just 300 of us. I was sitting over there, and we were jumping and rocking with delight. Well, I'm not sure you will be doing that for me and all our speakers over the next 2 days, but it goes to show how heritage can be repurposed for the future. An abiding theme for Heritage Exchange and a project HLF is very proud to have supported. This afternoon, I want to look forward and talk about the changes that lie ahead and how we might respond to the stark challenges that confront us. But to fortify our resolve for this task, I want to remind you all of the solid public support for what we all do. We've recently commissioned a study by Britain Thinks of over 4,000 adults in 12 locations across the UK, and we found that 94% of respondents believe that heritage is important for the country as a whole. 86% thought it was important for their local area. 81% of them thought it was important for them personally. And we found out that 7 out of 10 respondents said that they believe HLF's investment in their area is a good or excellent use of lottery funds. HLF will have more to say about this research later in the year, but as a sneak preview, and it also included, by the way, discussions with groups of local people, here are some of the voices we heard.
Portsmouth is the place for the Navy, and anybody who wants to know anything about the Navy comes here.
I think one of the most surprising things for me is the amount of lottery money invested into the history of Portsmouth.
It moulds you to who you are, it makes you what you are. Whatever's around you, it makes you you.
We'll not be able to talk to our grandchildren if we don't keep it alive now.
It's your own culture and your own country, and you like learn as much as you can about heritage.
Small local projects that also have lasting legacies because they bring history, ideas, skills, and they make people in the local community join together and work together.
It's opened my eyes to a lot of things I didn't even know were around, a lot of things that I should start appreciating and start going to see these places because to have them on your front door is a privilege.
Try and create a better atmosphere around the heritage sites, therefore it's better for the local economy and better for local pride.
What makes Bradford unique is the people, and that's really part of the heritage of Bradford.
Within Bradford's heritage, we've come from being just one type of people from one place to inviting the whole world in, accepting them.
As it's where we're from, our backgrounds, our culture. It makes us proud that we are from Bradford. It makes us who we are.
And it's just a collectiveness, a sense of belonging, I think, for me personally.
Done some fantastic architecture, but there's much more in Glasgow than Macintosh.
It's part of us, it's part of our history and our life and part of our futures. It's about the local community and things that they find important.
But knowing that some of that money is going to preserve my city, improve my city, and it takes away the gambling aspect of it because it's charity as well. My children will benefit from it and their children.
My children will benefit from it and their children. Well, it's to sustain this level of public support and deepen their connection to heritage we urgently need more exchange between us. And in that respect, the title of this event is no accident. We need exchange of ideas about how we can ensure heritage is critical to the future and regarded as such by people outside the heritage sector. Exchange across boundaries and silos, both within the heritage sector and outside. Exchange about how we can look forward, striving to ensure that heritage has a bigger role to play in our lives and in our society. Perhaps some have allowed heritage to become too detached from the warp and weft of national debate and social change and renewal. Exchange about how place and identity and the power of heritage to illuminate them are a vital fulcrum for change. Perhaps in these times more than ever, heritage is a powerful source for the future, as it helps us understand who we are, where we've come from, and the values that unite us. And finally, we need exchange about how we can all become better stewards of heritage. Far-sighted stewardship has never been an easy task. Balancing the needs of the past, present, and future is a formidable challenge, and it's certainly getting harder for all of us. Let me acknowledge the greatest short-term challenge we face, that some are spending too long stuck in a cycle of grief about the ongoing impacts of austerity on public funding levels, unable to move on and frame an appropriately clear-headed and radical approach to change circumstances. The old funding model has gone, and the headline figures remain stark. I've said before that we estimate at least £500 million a year of public funding has been lost to the heritage sector since 2010, both nationally and locally, some £2 billion. And the impact of this loss has seen remarkable changes. As we will hear tomorrow, from research we've commissioned from New Philanthropy Capital, nearly 3/4 of respondents from the heritage sector have been able to stabilise or increase their income over the last 3 years, which reflects the fact that many heritage organisations have become far more experimental in tapping new funding sources. But many more need to follow. We need to honestly discuss the strains and stresses on local authorities and other co-investors as we seek to maintain and grow the influence and impact of all we do. It is, of course, welcome that talk in the country is no longer of recession. But although we have growth, we know we are not going back to the investment environment of 2008. So how do we respond? The biggest danger is that we succumb to incremental fudge, diminished ambitions, and salami slicing. The right response is that we seek to show the vitality of our heritage as an untapped resource, and that we continue to reimagine its future role, that we become clearer about the values and principles that drive what we do, and about the value we are seeking to create. We cannot imaginatively frame new ideas and approaches if we stay rooted in the shadows of funding decline. Rather, we need to step outside those shadows by fashioning a keener, collective sense of how we can achieve more in the future. So what are our shared opportunities and, of course, challenges? Firstly, we will have to keep inventing new models to sustain our heritage. All too often, we see great community models being brought forward for assets for which there is no matching or sustainable business model. These examples highlight how our collective thinking about revenue will have to be more innovative and broad, and will increasingly not include public funding on an ongoing basis. My time at HLF began just as the credit crunch was kicking in during the autumn of 2008, and it's been a time of turbulence and no little jeopardy. In that fast-changing environment, I've wanted HLF to provide some of the tools and assistance that could help heritage organisations navigate these waters. For example, HLF's Skills for the Future programme was a tailored response by us to the impact of the crash and the need to refresh and upgrade the skills base across the heritage workforce. And this has funded projects like Foundations in Heritage, providing training opportunities for young people in rural West Wales, and cultural heritage skills in London's East End, led by the Whitechapel Gallery, and again, aimed at growing local talent. More recently, we've launched our Rethinking Parks initiative with Nesta, through which we're funding new ways for parks to meet local needs, as well as generating new sources of income. One early scheme is the National Trust's imaginative partnership with Sheffield City Council to manage all the city's open spaces, and that features a green space endowment that will unlock new funding through public giving, philanthropy, and health budgets. The Catalyst funding stream is another way that HLF is actively trying to help heritage organisations create new sustainable business models. This has benefited organisations from the V&A at one end of the scale, now well into fundraising for its Catalyst endowment, to somewhere like Coggs Manor Farm in Oxfordshire, which has a Catalyst small grant that is helping it diversify its income. New business models is one of the key topics we will have time to discuss over the next 2 days, and I'm very encouraged by the range of social investment funders that have come along to Heritage Exchange. This is a further sign of the heritage sector becoming more outward-facing. What are our other opportunities? We have an opportunity to continue to raise public awareness of the vital contribution that heritage makes to the cultural, social, and economic life of this country. We need to hear cities and communities making the case for heritage assets, in addition to the familiar chorus that emanates from all of us gathered here. And we will know whether we've made progress in the next 10 years by the extent to which the things we value and care most about have become an integral part of what others are measured on, assessed on, and are called to account to nurture and support. All of which will require the heritage sector, as Michael Clark from the RSPB will argue tomorrow, to give a better account of how it contributes to the public good, and how in turn this requires us to forge new and different relationships with the public and with places. We need to think with great clarity about the importance and significance of our rich, intangible, human-made and natural heritage. We will soon be hearing from Professor Nick Groom about the importance of intangible heritage, and we must fight any default to only the tangible and material in our conception of heritage. We also need to turn outwards and think more deeply about the communities we serve. This is why HLF has commissioned the RSA to carry out research about the role heritage can play in sustaining and shaping places in the future. We will hear from Matthew Taylor on how there is an identity gap at the heart of most place-shaping efforts, and a mission that heritage can correct. We all know heritage has the power to bring people from communities together in ways that can have real impact on local society. Maybe, as a sector, we are not using that convening power enough, an issue that we will be discussing over the next day and a half. And in my time at HLF, I've seen this myself in numerous places. The Royal Devonshire Hospital in Buxton and the Roundhouse in Derby are two personal favourites. They're both new education uses for historic buildings that have reinvigorated their towns and provided so much more inspiring a place for young people to study than a drab modern campus. And go to a different scale, and I've seen it in a place like Pullen St Mary in Norfolk, where HLF funding is for the Penoya Centre. This centre is the setting of a 17th century schoolhouse, and the 17th century schoolhouse has provided space for education, business, social and recreational use that was entirely absent before from the village. Or visit Underfall Yard in Bristol to see the heritage of the city's maritime engineering being brought back into active economic use. Or Hastings, where community ownership lies at the heart of an ambitious scheme to restore the pier. Go to Stoke-on-Trent and see the reindustrialisation of Middleport pottery by the Prince's Regeneration Trust. But don't overlook the importance of a project like this, the Potteries Tile Trail, which is recording the ceramics that can still be found today on the shop fronts, houses, and industrial buildings of Stoke's famous Six Towns. We all know that community involvement is key here, and we have supported many projects led by volunteers and garnering great public support. Our funding for grants to mark the centenary of the First World War has captured the public imagination and voluntary effort, as at the home of Hedwyn in North Wales, where this most moving of war poets continues to be commemorated. These projects, and a myriad others like them, raise important questions about how we, as heritage investment partners, come together with communities to define a more strategic investment approach to place. I could list countless examples of where communities have found their heart again when their aspirations and the physical attributes of their heritage have been refreshed and repurposed. We need to do more of these things in new ways and with greater impact. We need to tap further into that burgeoning demand from leisure, culture, and social enterprises for a base in the authentic surroundings of historic buildings. And we have to go further in using the collections in museums as a resource for telling stories about the past and exploring possibilities of the future. We have to better connect the traditions of our rural past with the natural world that gave rise to them. Austerity is accelerating the interdependencies of what we do, particularly so for funders and investors. In a world where public funding of heritage, arts, and culture is not going to rise to the pre-2008 levels, the idea that we can still think and act in silos is nonsense. We all know this, but I'm not sure we've fully embraced the implications. Clearly, it means we need to think harder about our different activities, how they add up to a strategic whole. We need to identify the glue in terms of values, principles, and aims that hold our co-investment strategies together, the partnerships we could form. This raises a question for us to debate. Do the assembled partners at this event need to work more actively to get together to develop strategic plans for assets and places we are all investing in, perhaps based on shared approaches to mapping the heritage we're seeking to nurture and sustain? If old models of funding and practice are broken, do we share enough common ground to forge new approaches quickly and effectively? John Holden and Robert Hewison will begin to address this issue this afternoon as we explore what binds and divides us. And tomorrow, Maria Balshaw will challenge us to evolve new modes of professional behaviour that will encourage more insightful, no-blame conversations between us about letting some things change and letting some things go. These imperatives feel like exciting opportunities for me, the chance to creatively balance the need for independent, expert decision-making whilst we explore and share much more actively our investment plans. In this respect, I'm very optimistic about where we've reached some 20 years on from the birth of the National Lottery. The ambition behind the lottery to enable more people to be enriched by enjoying our heritage remains a powerful lodestar for all our actions. As John Major stated at the lottery's inception, the hope was that lottery funding would revolutionize both sport and the arts and preserve for future generations much of our heritage landscape that would otherwise disappear. I would argue that the lottery has been a stunning success in these respects. It has allowed us to work together to stabilize core parts of our heritage, to stimulate innovation, and has created the foundations for us to move into what will be a distinctively different era. The additionality principle has also proved to be a vital, much needed foundation for innovation and plurality. It has nurtured that plurality of funding. And austerity has forcibly underlined the need for strategic investment by bodies. We need more independent and evidence-based fleet-of-foot expertise, not less. So let's protect additionality whilst recognizing our interdependence and seeking to ensure our activities add up to a strategic whole. And arm's length must mean arm's length. Let's be confident about our shared expertise and investment instincts, but we must acknowledge additionality starts from a different place than in 2010. We must also grasp the opportunity to look beyond our shores for inspiration and ideas, and we've included some international perspectives in this program to illuminate where heritage is proving a powerful organizing principle around placemaking and future thinking. Bob McNulty has provided us with a powerful account of how heritage can be critical for the future in terms of building communities, and we'll say more about this tomorrow. And we need to ensure the heritage sector embraces today's world of technological innovation, of increasing diversity and mobility, and the expectation of choice and interaction. We live in a diverse, multicultural society, and we absolutely have to ensure that the stories we tell about our shared history are of relevance and of interest to everyone. So we have much to discuss and ponder as we work together. Conferences can often galvanize shared intent and ambition, and I'm optimistic that our exchanges can do just that. I'm enormously confident about the future, partly because of the challenges we face. The hard choices that come in more straitened times create the opportunity and the necessity for us to work much harder in developing and explaining the values and principles that need to anchor and guide our decisions. And this opens the possibility for us to engage more, not less, with the public and their aspirations. Allowing people to define their own heritage is crucial to the future of heritage in this country. I've said this before, but to borrow those famous words from Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address 150 years ago, we need to provide a heritage sector that is of the people, by the people, for the people of this country. This has to be our blueprint for the future, putting people at the very heart of what we do. The commitment, enthusiasm, and sheer love of heritage shown by HLF applicants on a daily basis should inspire us all. It has certainly captivated me as chair, and is one of the many reasons why it has been such a privilege to work with colleagues at HLF and with all of you, to try and to ensure that heritage takes center stage in our lives. HLF will play a role in working with partners to find creative ways to rise to these challenges and capitalize on the opportunities I've described. For me, though, this conference marks something of a point of departure. Though I shall remain actively involved in heritage, the end of August will see the end of my tenure as chair of HLF. And as I reflected on the inspirations and challenges of my last 6 years, the thought of Neil McGregor's time with us tomorrow led me to ponder what might be the 100 objects that could best capture the history of my time as chair of HLF. Happily for all of you, I'm not going to talk about 100. And happily, I only need one. A hard hat. It's been my constant companion. Before I became chair of HLF, no one warned me about the amount of time I would spend wearing hard hats, climbing up ladders, crawling out onto roofs and ledges. Heritage, in my experience, has been less about grand halls and rooms and more about hard hats, ladders, muddy fields and development sites and high-vis jackets. My first regional visit was to York Minster. I was very excited, and upon arrival, my hosts enthusiastically told me they were going to take me up 16 floors of scaffolding to show me the outside of the great east window. Did I mention I suffer from vertigo? I had also turned up very smart. I was going to meet the dean. I was in very high heels. I rushed out down the street and managed to buy some flat shoes from a shop near the Minster. My nerves began to shred as I headed up into the clouds. As I got to the final set of ladders, the immortal words rang out from below. Be careful, the wall leans out 7 feet in this section. Well, the only way I got through it was to look rigidly ahead. My advice, if you find yourself in a similar spot, never look down or back. In fact, rather good advice to us all in terms of the approach we have to adopt to this conference and to our future challenges. So let's begin the debate. Thank you.